I'm like out of breath because I haven't talked in a long time. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute. We kind of have a new setup going on because I moved my room around, so I actually don't really like it as much as my other setup, but bookcase is still behind me, so I guess that's all that matters. Anywho, long time no see. I did not film a video for February because I only read 3 books, and I just didn't really think that was enough for a wrap up. I decided to go ahead and mesh my February and March wrap ups together just because, yeah, I have not been reading a lot and I'm kind of upset about it, but it is what it is. I'm actually in a slump right now. I'm currently reading the 3rd book of the ACOTAR series, and it's taking me so long to get into this one, and I'm in a slump, but that's okay. If you have any recommendations for books that have gotten you out of slumps, please leave it in the comments below because I need something. I might end up rereading a book that I know I really like just so that will maybe get me out of a slump. But anyways, I'm happy to be back and excited to talk to you about the books I read in February and March. So not a lot, but that's okay, but we're gonna get into it. So I have my little stack here. The first book I read in February is Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. This cover is so cute. Anyways, this was kind of hyped up around YouTube and Book Talk a bit ago, and I finally decided to pick it up. So this book is, some of the themes and tropes in it are brother's best friend, small town, he falls first, and it's a cowboy romance. Basically, this is about a girl named Clementine. She goes by Emmy. So she has a career riding horses, but basically she gets into this accident and she's kind of afraid to continue her career. So she decides to go back to her hometown in Wyoming and just kind of get back on her feet and kind of, take some time off. And she runs into this boy named Luke, which is a guy she's known from her childhood, and he's been best friends with her brother for many years. And yeah, this is about her and Luke. My first impression of this book was that it was cute, and I was intrigued by the tropes that were in it. It sounded like it was going to be promising and light and fast-paced, but I just thought it was just okay. I thought it was decent. For me, I feel like lately all the romance books I've been reading, it's been so hard for me to really connect and get invested in the relationships in these books, and I feel like this one just fell flat for me. It wasn't very memorable. I don't remember a lot, and I feel like the ending was kind of mid, and I feel like not a lot happened in the middle of the book. I don't know, the romance was kind of a slow burn, but like I feel like I was getting nothing from the characters, and like I feel like the interactions they were having were just like not, I don't know, I didn't really care for it. I think I would recommend this book if you like those tropes, but just know that it's just like an easy romance read. It's nothing too groundbreaking. It's just decent in my opinion. I gave it 3 stars. On to the next book I read in February. As you can see, this is massive, and that is why I only read 3 books in February, because this took up a huge chunk of my time, and a lot of people told me I would fly through this series. That's not what's happening for me, but I did really love this book. Wow. And it did make me want to continue the series. Like, this book made me want to continue it. And I just said in the beginning of this video that I'm currently on the 3rd book and I'm finding it hard to get into, but let's talk about this. This is the 2nd book in the ACOTAR series, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. So this is a what do they call it? Romantasy series. So romance and fantasy series. It's about Feyre. Okay, I actually can't really talk much about this because I don't want to spoil the series, because this is the 2nd book in the series. But just like a gist of the overall series and what are the tropes and themes of this series. Even though I've only 3 books in, I'll give you what I can without spoiling. So in this book we have a love triangle, there's betrayal, there's high stakes. The romance was slow burn in this book, and I absolutely loved the chemistry between Ray, what do they call him? I think like at first getting into this book I was really confused on how the series was gonna continue, because the way the first book ended, I felt like that could have been it. Yeah, I was confused going into it, and at first it was kind of hard for me to get into, but overall I really liked this book and it made me want to continue the series. I think it was a little bit hard to follow at times just because I'm not like a huge fantasy reader, so it's hard for me to really get into the fantasy aspect of it, I guess, but I really loved the romance. And eventually I did get the hang of like reading the fantasy aspects and like the high stakes. I was invested. But yeah, I do think I would recommend this series if you are just starting to get into fantasy and you're a romance reader. Yeah, I gave this 4 stars. I didn't really explain what that's about, but I talked about the first book, and I kind of explained a good chunk of it about the plot and everything in my last reading wrap-up video, so if you're interested on info on the first book, go ahead and watch that video. The very last book I read in February is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I was very skeptical getting into this just because there's been a lot of mixed reviews online about this book, and honestly I didn't really dive deep into what people were saying until after I finished the book, so I kind of went into this kind of blind, not really expecting much. Love Theoretically was her last adult romance book she released, and I believe she released a young adult in between that and this book. Anywho, I don't know, I kind of went into this blind, not having a lot of expectations, not really knowing what I was getting into, because this is a paranormal romance, which I've never read before. I've never read something under this category, so I didn't really know what to expect, but I do really like Love on the Brain and The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, so I was excited to pick this up. And I don't really know how I feel. Like, I liked it. There's a lot of it I did like, but then a lot of it did cringe me out. But overall, I think I did have a good time reading it. So basically, this is about a girl named Misery, and she's a vampire. She's a daughter of a powerful vampire councilman, and she's kind of an outcast. There's also werewolves in this book, and there's also just humans. So she's been called upon to uphold an alliance between the vampires and their mortal enemies, the weres, which are the werewolves. Basically, she's asked to marry one of the alpha werewolves. His name is Lo. They're basically going to do a marriage of convenience just to kind of show that werewolves and vampires can be civil and, you know, come together. So the reason she agrees to the marriage is not because of politics and alliances, which is what everyone else thinks she's agreeing it to. She agrees to it because it says in the back she's willing to do whatever it takes to get back what's hers. So I don't really want to spoil it, but basically her best friend is a big part of the plot of this book, and what happened to her best friend, she's trying to deal with that. So that is a pretty big plot of the book, and then obviously there's the romance. And then obviously there's the, you know, politics and alliances happening between the werewolves and the vampires. So this book was kind of interesting. It was like nothing I've really ever read before. I thought it was pretty entertaining, and I didn't take it too serious, you know, it's just fun. But I will say some of it cringed me out, for sure. I'm not going to get into the details, but some of the tropes and themes in this book are forbidden love, paranormal romance, obviously, found family, kind of. It seems like there's going to be another book to this. I don't know if it'll be a duology or a series, but found family I put, and then marriage of convenience, and then supernatural and mystery aspects. So if that sounds interesting to you, I would pick this up. Overall, I gave this a 3.5 stars. So now into all the books I read in March. Only 3, you know, we're doing our best here. The first book I read in March is Tia Williams' new release, A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. She is the author of 7 Days in June, which I actually really loved that book. I don't know if that's her debut novel, but it's like the book that got her kind of popular. That book is really good. I believe I gave that 4 or 4.5 stars. This came out and I was excited to get into it. She's known for like writing about, for example, 7 Days in June, with like the characters dealt with a lot of trauma. There was a lot of depth to the characters and the storyline, which I really loved. So just saying that, I was really expecting, I guess, a lot from this, and I was excited to get into it. So this book is about a girl named Ricky. She's an autistic daughter of a powerful Atlanta dynasty. She's the opposite of her sisters. I believe her family owns a funeral home or something along those lines, and She's basically expected to kind of go into that line of work and go into the family company, but she really doesn't want to do that. She always has wanted to open up her own flower shop and, you know, move away and make a name of her own. She ends up finding a new place in New York City. She ends up like renting out a bottom floor of a apartment building on Harlem, which this book was a good chunk of this book was like historical information and like background on Harlem in New York City and like the music scene and everything like that, which I thought was pretty cool and interesting to read about how she kind of incorporated like real history into the fiction of this book. Anywho, so she ends up doing that. She's following her dreams, and in the like description of this it says like, beneath the surface of her new neighborhood, the music, stories, and dazzling drama of the Harlem Renaissance still simmers. So that's like a huge part of the book. And then on one evening in February, she runs into this mysterious man, and they keep running into each other. And eventually they kind of form a relationship, and there's just like a whole backstory on him and how they're connected. It was really interesting. Two passionate artists drawn to the magic and romance of New York City, and whose lives are irreversibly linked. So after I read that summary, I was like really excited to read this, and I was hooked. Overall, I did enjoy this book. So at first I was really enjoying this book, and you know, the path Ricky was taking, you know, kind of fun, like following her dreams and like, you know, really doing what she wanted to do for herself. I will admit there's kind of like a flashback timeline happening in this book, which did kind of confuse me because you don't really like, the two don't connect, like the present time and the flashbacks don't connect till a while into the book. So I feel like that kind of threw me off. I was a little confused with that, and it kind of prohibited me from like really connecting and like loving the story. Overall, I did like this book, and I thought it was well written, but I think I wasn't super attached to the relationship, and I thought the ending was really predictable. But overall, I enjoyed it for the most part, and like I said, I do really like Tia Williams' writing. Yeah, I would recommend this. It was a romance book that had like a lot more to it, but for me, it was just hard for me to connect. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Some of the themes and tropes in this book are magical realism, black history, fated lovers, music history, Harlem Renaissance, following your dreams, and dual timeline. If that sounds interesting to you, I do recommend this. I'm so up. Gotta take a breather before I talk about this, even though I'm not gonna be able to say much. But the second book I read in March is Magnolia Parks, Into the Dark. And wow, how many loves do you actually get in a lifetime? I'm sick. Don't even. I can't even get into this because I will spoil so much in the series. This is the third and final book for Magnolia Parks and BJ. But wow, I have like so much to say, but I don't want to spoil it. If you are looking for something that's really entertaining, found family, drama, messy relationships, British people, rich British people, I really recommend this series. And I just love the way Jessa Hastings writes. Like, you really feel like you're in the mind of these characters and that they're real people. These books are very character driven, they're not plot heavy. But yes, anyways, highly recommend this if that sounds interesting to you. Like I said, this is the last book for Magnolia Parks and BJ, so I can't really get into too much because I will spoil a lot. But let me just give you like a general themes and tropes. A huge part of this book is dealing with grief, so look up the trigger warnings. Grief, mental health, found family. It's very character driven, like I said. Overcoming trauma. Look up trigger warnings. Yeah. Wow. This was a lot. I don't know if I love how it turned out. I had a lot of expectations for it, and it was very long. I will say that I think it did not have to be as long as it was, and it felt a little repetitive at times. I enjoyed a good amount of it, but I think this book was more about the characters dealing with grief and overcoming trauma from their past. I really enjoyed the ending of it, but for me, it felt way too long. So for that, I only give it 3.8 stars. But I am happy with how it was concluded, and like, yeah, I do recommend this series. There will be more books in this series, just not for Magnolia Parks and BJ, I believe. I think they will be more Daisy Haight driven. Wow. Okay. That's that. I don't want to say too much. Now, we're on the final book. I read in March. This is Ready or Not by Cara Baston. Really cute cover. So I fell victim to another TikTok recommendation. I saw one TikTok of this book and the girl explained it. The girl did such a good job of convincing me to buy it. Like, she made it sound like this book was gonna be like, I could have sworn she compared it to like Happy Place by Emily Henry, like the writing, and that it was a romance, but it was like a lot about, it wasn't just about a romance, it was like about self-growth. And yeah, I was so intrigued. I went to the bookstore, I bought it, and I was let down yet again with a TikTok. But this basically is about a girl named Eve. She lives in a cozy apartment in Brooklyn and she's really close with her childhood best friend Willa. She's working a normal job, something that it's not her dream job, but she's comfortable, she's steady. She knows what to expect from life. Basically, she's just cruising, right? And then she finds out she's pregnant. So, accidental pregnancy trope, which a lot of people, that usually steered people away from reading books. Anyways, she finds out she's pregnant. Her friendship with her best friend, her friendship with Willa is kind of tense because she's been trying to get pregnant. Willa has a brother who's also really good friends with Eve because they grew up together. She starts feeling feelings for him, but she's pregnant with another man's baby, so this book is kind of messy. Yeah, she's just kind of trying to figure out her next steps and how she's navigating all of this. Navigating her relationship with her best friend's brother, the man that she is having a baby with, and just her personal life as well. So yeah, I was really excited for this, and I did have like a lot of expectations, and it says on the back it's a slow burn. I don't know. Like I said in the beginning of this video, a lot of the romance books I've been reading have really fell flat for me. They haven't been anything spectacular and groundbreaking. I've just kind of been like, here's another romance book, you know, kind of, I don't know, I just not have been feeling deep feelings while reading these books, and that's what I've been like craving. So it's kind of been hard for me to connect to these books. Sorry for that little rant. Anyways, themes and tropes: accidental pregnancy, navigating change, friendships and relationships, slow burn, love triangle, he falls first, and friends to lovers. Overall, this was a quick read for me. I thought it was just alright. The romance was a slow burn, but for me, like, it didn't do it for me, you know? Some slow burns are just like teensy bit slow burn. I love when it's like a real slow burn, real slow burn. Yeah, it had a lot to do with just Eve navigating her life and all these situations that are going on in her life. And I think I would recommend this, but it was kind of just mid in my opinion. And that's that. I'm actually still reading a book, and I started in March. It's the third ACOTAR book, but I haven't finished it, so that'll be in my next reading wrap up. So a lot of the books I read this past 2 months were just alright in my opinion, nothing too crazy, but I still do recommend them. If I recommend anything 3 stars or higher, I do recommend them. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for and if the themes and tropes in these books, you know, catch your attention. So that's that, I guess. I'm finding it hard to think of other video ideas besides these wrap-ups, which sucks because I do want to post more content, but I just don't really know what. So if anyone has any suggestions of what they'd like to see from me, leave it in the comments below. That would be very nice. Anyways, I will see you in my next video. I don't know when that will be, but let's hope it's before my next wrap up. Thank you so much for watching and sticking around. I hope you found a new book recommendation out of this video, and yeah, I'll see you in my next video.